Hi, I'm Warren.
And I'm Adam, and we work for the Sanguine Writing House, the UK's leading provider of online and in-person mystery games.
Okay, so today, this is the next episode of our Myfield podcast, and we're being joined by Andy Aston, a lecturer from Coventry University, and we're talking about his concept called B.U.R.S.T.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so I came up with this concept. I'll give you a little bit of a background, really, to begin with. So since around 2009, I've worked in various parts of health and social care. So that would be children with autism, adolescents, teenagers with EBD, SEMH, and all the various acronyms that come along with that. Then also adults with learning disabilities. And so within that, you vary in the way you speak to people, and it's very person-centered. And so obviously, the way I would speak to children would change from the way I speak to adults. And what I've tried to do throughout all of this is come up with a bit of a structure so I can eventually get the individuals I'm talking to be more of to understand themselves more, so to learn about them and learn how they can then handle or manage any anxieties or any worries what they have. And that's when I've come up with the acronym called B.U.R.S.T.
Okay, so what is B.U.R.S.T, Andy? Do you want to kind of, because this is quite intriguing, I think, and I think it's quite a powerful tool that can be used. So yeah, if you can kind of talk us through it, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the time, people who have got any worries or things like that, see, obviously I work with students, and a lot of them, they're constantly worried about they're not academically gifted enough and things like that. So somewhere down the line, either someone has told them they're not academically gifted enough, something has put a wedge for them to continue. Sometimes you'll find people who are coming to university late on in life thinking that they couldn't do it earlier on in life. I myself was one. I didn't go back to university until I was 42, but I never thought I could do it. But because of doing short courses within health and social care, like level 2, level 3, etc., I started to realise, actually, I am quite academically gifted, and then why have I not done this for years? So this is one of the reasons. So B.U.R.S.T is believe, understand, rationalise, stabilise, and transition. If I just begin with the believe, first of all, like I say, sometimes you need either someone to give you that nudge, give you that little bit of a lift, a boost, to say, look, you can do this, or you can do it yourself by obviously doing some kind of work and thinking, hang on a minute, I am able to do this myself. And that's your own motivational boost for you there. And I think a lot of that you'll get with Bandura, self-efficacy kind of stuff. If you want to go down the psychology route, and that's perfect for your research on that, really.
Do you think a lot of it comes from childhood experiences, that lack of kind of self-belief, that lack of, I can't do this, I've never been able to do this? Do you think that's kind of where it stems from in people?
And I've got a real good example. So a student from a couple of years ago, I used to try to help her to do research. So if we were doing something on counselling psychology, I'd give her a title, say, okay, do a little bit of research on that. And she'd come back to me 5 minutes later saying, I can't do it, I've never been able to do this, things like this. And I was really trying different ways. How can I, is it the way I'm asking her? Am I giving her enough information, what she needs? And I was finding it mind-boggling. So what I actually did, I sort of flipped it and I said, okay, I'm going to get us a drink of tea or coffee, asked her what she wanted. And I said, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Do me a favour. To my daughter's birthday coming up, I need some black Nike trainers with an orange swoosh. And we just have a little mess around and do that for me. I think Warren's realising where I'm coming from here. So exactly what I did, I got her to do that. She come back, she said, oh, that's great. And I said, I forgot the sugar. Do me a favour. I don't want an orange drop. I want it more a yellow one. And make sure it's the leather. So I actually did that again, come back, and she'd done all that. And I said, look, you can research. You've just done that for me. You've got the price I wanted. You've got the right thing. So all I've done is give you those details. Now you take that, transition that skill into researching what we are researching about. And her confidence boost hit the roof. She realised she could do it. She was just blocking herself, really.
Yeah, I suppose that's a great way of doing that, really, isn't it? Because people do things every day, but they don't realise that they're doing what they should be doing or what you're asking them to do. It's just a different way of putting it. So that's it's just that consideration and structure for that person, and it's just adapting it to them.
Perfect. People learn in different ways, and people will get different experiences from things than others will. In my own degree, I was better, I think, more of the presentation thing. So I used to get good marks with that, and I wasn't excellent academically. I was getting better, but the more obviously I did it, the more I was more confident with it. So going on to understand, so I had to understand why Jo, her name, for the sake of this, I had to understand why she felt negative like that. And it would be because she was maybe not as good as her sister academically. So her sister would either always be taking the mickey out of her and things like that. So obviously it's delving down deep into that then, how has this manifested that she doesn't think she's as good and things like that. And by Jo opening up and telling me these things, obviously she's disclosing a little bit, but that's also showing a level of trust. So we're obviously having that conversation then on that level. Now, as I will say to everybody, I don't know whether B.U.R.S.T will work in all situations. I'm not saying that, but I think it probably helps by having that connection with the person in the first place. But also I've had people come up to me asking me things when they don't really know me. So maybe I'm a little bit hopefully approachable and things like that. Maybe my tone of voice, my body language, it all helps to get people to interact with me. And obviously being a teacher, I'm in that role anyway where I should be approachable.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's a whole, like I say, it might not work for everybody, but they might be able to take bits of it and apply it to the everyday, and obviously it's going to help, like it's all got to, might not all come together, but there's certainly elements that everybody can use. So
I think, trust is a massive one though, isn't it, Andy? Because like you say, you've got when you're saying understand, you're understanding where that person is, where that person's been, and you're kind of figure that out, and especially people that have had difficult childhood or they've had mental ill health issues. They might have been let down by services before. They might have been let down by teachers before. So to trust is very difficult, isn't it?
100%. And Carl Rogers, famous psychologist again, he's awful. You might have heard of the thing called mirroring, like the person you're. However, it's very, very important not to overtake that, because if someone discloses something to you or like lays their anxieties out to you, obviously don't go over and say, yeah, I've been there, I've done that. You do a little bit of that because you need to let them know that you have got an idea of where they're coming from, but it's about them. They're the individual who's calling out for a little bit of help. So you can sometimes, as someone talking, don't make it about you, make it constantly about that individual.
I suppose I was going to say, I suppose that could lead from like where the trauma's come from, isn't it? With people overtaking them or talking over them all the time. So that if you make them almost the center of it, that's where the trust will build.
Correct, yeah.
So obviously, what was the next stage then? So you've got the believe, the understand.
Yeah, and then we're going on to rationalise. So now, as they were children, they may have, like you mentioned, been spoken down to, they being criticised and things like that. As they're coming into either work or university life and things like that, the likelihood of those things happening are less. I'm not saying they won't, but you know, the likelihood of people criticising their work and things like that, it should by now obviously not. You know, you're not being taken the mick out of by peers, you know, school kids or teachers who perhaps would have spoken down to you. It is more of a supportive environment. So the Rationalise is this going to happen again? Would you stand for that now? Because obviously you're a little bit older and things like that. Yes, Sasha, brilliant. Yeah, listening, of course. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. If you use them in that proportion, obviously it's a good way.
It's old saying.
So you're just rationalising with the people. You know, you're not telling them what to do. I love this expression as well. I consider myself like a bowling alley buffer. So you've got the 2 rudders on the side, and I'm just there to stop them going over into the alleyways. So I'm a facilitator. I don't. They do all the work. I'm just ensuring that they don't.
Yeah, just a comment from Pete there that he loves the R in this. Perspective is something I always have to remind myself of. Rationalise is perfect for this because B.U.R.S.T sounds daft. Yeah.
Brilliant, Pete.
Yeah. It's got to make sense, hasn't it? Yeah. You know, I think there is still scope for people to need that guidance as well and need those buffers. I think even in early adulthood, when you kind of go into university in your first job, I think everybody needs that reassurance and that kind of almost guide rail to go, right, you know, this is okay, you can do this. You know, and I think it's only possibly when we get older that we start going, I'm okay on my own, you know, and I feel like I can do this. Because, you know, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard when we're going into new environments, new situations, and we're, you know, we've had experiences or we're going through experiences.
Yeah. I think to a certain extent you still need it as an, you know, because the amount of people through whatever's happened over the last couple of years, the amount of people who've changed direction and gone into something new, you know, that's still scary. And, you know, I look at, you know, myself sometimes and go, well, could I change direction? And that would be a real scary kind of thing for me, because I go, well, this is what I've always known. Can I do this? And I suppose
you have done. Yeah, you have done with your career as well, haven't you?
I have done, yeah. But it took people like Adam to go, you can do this. You can do this. You've got this skill from this. You've got this from that. Like you did with Joe and the trainers. Show that, you know, you can do this because you're doing it, but just do it this way. You just do it for this instead. So I think it's not just, I think it's something that would be applied to all ages, really.
Yeah. So, so moving on.
Yeah, I was going to say once we've done that.
I'm sorry, so with the stable, you re-examine the negatives. Why am I thinking that? Well, you know, everyone has anxieties. Sometimes they're not as bad as we think, but anxieties can be a good thing because it shows us that there is a possibility of danger. It's just a matter of how we manage that anxiety. So what I'm basically saying is try not to worry that it's there. It's just how you manage it. Yeah, no one learns anything from comfort zone. That's good. Then obviously once we've got that done, we kind of try to stabilise that person. So again, you're just acting like a bit like that buffer, the bowling alley buffer again. You're giving them more empowerment. You know, you can do this. You have done it. You've proved you can do it. And then, self-determination. You're bringing them that bit of positivity. Again, like just ensure that they don't go off track.
So what's the T, Andy? Sorry, that's transition, is it? Sorry, where are we now? We're on S.
On stabilise. So you're just stabilising it, really, stabilising things. And then you move on to what you mentioned earlier as well, is where they become more of an expert in themselves. So yeah, they obviously they know how to reduce their anxieties and they can control it. If they do have a blip, they'll just go back to the other stages, the understanding, the rationalizing, and then once they get used to this cycle, they do transition into experts in themselves, and they start managing their own well-being, really. And that is the goal, obviously. No one needs to be there for them all the time. We can be, but if they can manage these anxieties or worries or concerns themselves, obviously, yeah, everyone should be happier, really.
Yeah, it's about building strategies, isn't it, for coping and knowing what strategies work for you. You know, there's so many things that people will say to you that say, you know, you should be able to do this, you know, use this strategy, or, you know, why don't you try this? And you kind of go away and you think, well, that doesn't really work for me, or, you know, that. And I think what's really, really good about your model is it kind of, when we get to that transition, people are in a place where they know exactly what works for them, and they know kind of what the red flags are, and they know the right coping strategy for that red flag.
Yeah.
And they know that if they have a wobble and things aren't going well, they can kind of go back down the ladder almost,
Yeah.
and then work their way back up.
Yeah.
And
And there's nothing wrong with going back down the ladder, as long as you know that you know the route back up, should you say. And there's one thing, one of the ones which I mentioned here, her name is Carol Dweck. That's Dweck, and she does a lot of work on fixed mindset and growth mindset. Obviously, if your fixed mindset is I was always bad at maths as a kid, I'm going to be bad forever, or your growth mindset is just because I was bad as a kid doesn't mean I'm going to be bad now. And obviously, that is one of the transitional elements of this as well. But obviously, more of a growth mindset.
Yeah.
So you said that transitional side, that is really just about learning where you're at and recognizing yourself, isn't it? And then hopefully, you know, taking that on to be able to recognize in other people, and then obviously just help other people. It is so important, this. And I take it, can anybody use this approach?
I think Pete's just nodding towards that there. I can't see why not. Obviously, it works with me with students, but it definitely has worked with the teenagers I've worked with in the care homes as well. With the adults with the learning disabilities as well, I've obviously boosted their confidence, made them feel better about themselves, because regularly, if someone's got a learning disability, unfortunately, society just treat them negatively on a lot of times. So it's about boosting their confidence as well. And I've used very similar tactics to this in making them feel better about themselves, giving them more obviously self-awareness.
Question from Patrick as well. I don't know if you can see that, Andy. So B.U.R.S.T is more of a principle-driven taxonomy than a model. Would you agree with that?
At the moment, yes. Obviously, I haven't done any deep research into it. When I was a teaching assistant at the university, pretty much how I'm doing with you guys, I showed this model to a fair few of my colleagues. They all liked it, gave me a few little tweaks which I might be able to add in or change and help develop and things. Then obviously COVID came around and I've put it on the back burner for a little while. But yeah, I'm happy to start looking into it a bit more again now. But yeah, it's just an idea for now, but obviously something which we can obviously grow.
I was going to say, is this what are you looking at, like growing this and then taking this out and teaching this to people, or making it part of the courses that you're running?
Definitely, yes. I have put a PowerPoint to this, but it is obviously with the university's logos on at the moment, so I won't give that out because for all sorts of reasons. But yeah, they're looking at obviously doing that as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. And
thank you, Sasha.
Yeah, that's a really good kind of feedback, you know, and it's an approach, isn't it? It's a strategy, it's a principle that we can apply, you know, and I think what's really, really good, Andy, is that it's based on your experience as well.
Yeah.
Because, without experience, strategies kind of don't have any substance. And we were talking before, you've worked in a lot of similar settings to me in terms of mental health, challenging behaviour, autism. And I think, your experience and your understanding of people and the way that people communicate and struggle with issues is kind of, that's the depth behind this, isn't it?
As well, Adam, I was that tearaway teenager who didn't have any guidance, didn't have anyone to listen to me and things like that. So having some kind of model a bit like this, where people are not scared to say the wrong thing, as long as you're saying something to someone and listening to them, that is a massive thing.
Yeah, and obviously Pete's just mentioned, empathy is a key concept, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
I suppose that empathy that's built into the belief and the understanding, isn't it? Because that the belief that was one that struck me. It's not like somebody just tells you something and goes, "Oh yeah, that's true." It's you're believing that this person has.
It's absolutely massive. Sorry, Ed, I'm putting in there. I'm getting excited again.
All right.
When kids in the kids' homes and coming to you and telling you something, you can't just brush it off and go, "Yeah, he's said that before, or they've said similar things before." You have to get down their level and understand why they are thinking the way they're thinking, what has got into their head like that. And of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the ACEs score, Andy. So the adverse childhood experience. Yeah. So some of the kids that I've worked with, they almost like go, "Well, my ACE score is 12, so I can't do that." It's
not everything, is it?
It's like a badge almost, and people have told them that you've had all this trauma, you've had all these issues, so therefore
you've got a right to be.
Yeah, but the fact that you can believe in them and say, "Look, it doesn't matter what you've done before, it doesn't matter kind of what's gone in the past. What's important is what we're doing now for your future," and that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So something from Patrick. Patrick is a clinical psychotherapist, Andy. So he's probably putting you on the spot.
No, perfect. Yeah.
Sounds very interesting. Principle-driven approaches tend to be more accessible and usable than models in mental health, as models require constant revision. Yeah, that's spot on from Patrick, isn't it? Yeah.
And rightfully so, Patrick. I had another ex-clinical colleague say similar stuff to me in the past. This is why I'm just like starting out with it, really. And the more feedback, positive or negative, I can get on this and ways to make it better or make it more accessible and usable is obviously wonderful.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Well, that's it. I think as the concept goes, I think it's brilliant. Like I say, won't work for everybody, but there's bits in there that everybody can use. There's sense behind it all, and I think it could really make a difference to how people approach things. And I think it's personally, I think it's great, and it's something we could all adopt for everyday kind of lives. Little things, big or small. It's it's usable. It really, really is usable.
Yeah, I think memorable and usable, and it's kind of easy to follow if you like. And it's having a little bit of structure, but with the freedom to to change it for each individual you're working with.
So I think that's been amazing, and it's been great to hear all about this. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to people?
Not really. Perhaps I've got one quote which I'd like, and it is again from Rogers. So Patrick might like this one. He says, "Over time, I think I've become more aware of the fact that in therapy, I do use myself. I recognise that when I'm intentionally focused on a client, just my presence seems to be healing.
Wow.
And I think that's wonderful. And that's from the 50s.
Yeah.
I think. So just by being there and, by being person-centered to the individual, that is part of the healing process and the well-being as well.
Again, it starts that trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
And building that with somebody.
That's brilliant. Yeah. So thank you very much, Andy. That's been amazing. And also, I just thank you everybody for all your comments and interaction. I think that's been really, really fantastic today. If anybody's got any more questions or wants to possibly get in touch with you, Andy, we will pass people on to you. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
No. So, again, thank you. It's been so interesting. I think we're all going to take away quite a lot from this today. And again, just to let everyone know, we're back next week. And as we mentioned earlier, we've got a gentleman called Barry Fitzpatrick with us next week from a company called Route 8037. And I think next week we're going to be concentrating around men's mental health and their kind of ability to talk or trying to get people to talk and just understanding that. So that's next week, 12:30 on Tuesday. And it's been wonderful. It's been amazing. So again, thank you again, Andy. And hopefully, we'll have you back on again. It'd be great to catch up and see where we're at.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And
Thanks,
we will see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Mindfield podcast has been presented by the Sanguine Writing House, the UK's leading provider of online mystery and strategy games, along with team training, mental health awareness, and mental health first aid courses. To find out more and to book your course or game, please visit tswh.co.uk.